So what we are hearing from both Malsirini and Pasan actually, the different kind of obstructions that also tend to come up when filing RTI requests, which kind of goes neatly into the next kind of point I wanted to take it. So starting again with Sankhitha, I just wanted to ask, so you mentioned already a couple of instances where people were kind of reluctant to file, for example, some of the officials, etc. But what were some of the other issues that you found when you went around in the van? Was it due to lack of knowledge that people were not filing, that they didn't know that the RTI Act existed, or were there other obstacles that were preventing?
So with the RTI van, we found a difference in how enthusiastic people were to file RTIs based on where the van went. So in Trincomalee, on one trip of 4 days, there were about 170 RTIs filed. So they were stopping everywhere and people were enthusiastic. But in Jaffna, there were only about 30 across a similar space of time. So we find that it's linked to this perception that public authorities will single out requesters. That they will feel like that these citizens are attacking them and that they'll be identified as attacking them. So that perception is something we found across different areas. It's there everywhere, but it was more prevalent in Jaffna, based on the areas we've been to. Another thing we found in Trinco, even though there were all these RTI files, was that a person with respect to whom the questions had been asked then went to the requester's village and threatened and intimidated them, asking them why they had asked questions. When they received an acknowledgement of their acknowledgement and a response saying that the information would be provided, this person went to the area and said, they have called you for an inquiry, now you ask questions, now you will have to face the repercussions of it. Things like that. So kind of twisting the process in a way that scares people. Something that happened to another organization, that when Verité was carrying out a program asking people to use RTIs and publish their RTIs on Facebook, in Jaffna there had been a public authority that visited a young person in their home and threatened to burn down the house. So these things also have happened, but this is the exception. So going to your question of why aren't people using RTI that much, there is a widespread lack of knowledge on RTI, and then also a lack of knowledge enough to pursue with an RTI. So they will possibly have heard of the word RTI or Thoruthurupanta or Thavalakanu or whatever. They will even have gone to the stage of obtaining an RTI application and filing it. But if I were an information officer who didn't want to respond to RTI, I would just ignore the RTI. Right? Now people expect a response at the first stage itself, but they are not aware of the rest of the RTI Act and the protections it offers. So they don't know that they only have 14 days to appeal if they don't have a response, and that they have a right to appeal. That from there they can go to the RTI Commission. So because of that, there is a building lack of faith in the system, in the RTI system also. Another reason why I found that people haven't used RTI is because of the approach of the state when they publicize the act. So we know there have been newspaper advertisements, we know there was an RTI week, there were debates happening, a few stories on Rupvahini, ITN, etc. But the approach of the state has been blind to diversity. It has been blind to, for example, disability or gender or things like that. So mass-scale advertising approaches adopted are not very helpful. And I can give you an example. We find through our Kalapa Matara and Vaunia House Facilitation Center that the majority of people who come to our hubs are men. But we also go out to the field, to people, to villagers. We'll have, RTI training sessions happening under trees or in schools, and etc. And in those meetings, you find a vast majority of the time in the north and east that the majority of participants are women. So we recently, for Women's Day, took stock of what the gender balance has been in terms of, out of about 2,200 RTI applications, what percentage of users were women. And we found that 45% were women. Now, in our own experience, this is because we have been intentional about going to places where women are, where they have better access. And even in terms of disability, we find that when you go to groups of disability rights groups, in other different types of rights activists who are disabled, their RTIs won't necessarily be about disability or their, whatever they're entitled to. Their RTIs will be also about, development projects, roads, etc., etc. So this approach of large-scale, diversity-blind approach has also not helped. But we know in terms of awareness raising, there's been very little done. If you speak to anyone who knows about RTI, almost uniformly it will be because civil society has been to them, has been in touch with them.
I think that was really interesting, and I also want to add to the point that answer based on diversity. Apart from gender, there's also, from what we've seen, a lack of understanding of language quality. So the editor of Marjoram, Rajesh, who's actually here, 9 minutes back, has filed several request purposes in Tamil to kind of test what the response is in Tamil. And where people who file anything in English will take 1 month. Rajesh's request take at least 2-3 months. Sometimes people don't, have translators in house, so they're externally sending it to people to get it translated. Sometimes he gets requests in English when he asks for a response in Tamil. So yeah, those are just some of the things that
Can I quickly respond? In terms of language, there is a widespread lack of implementation of the national language policy, right? Unfortunately, this cannot be corrected through the RTI Act because under the RTI Act, you can indicate what language you prefer access in, and if they have it in the language you prefer access, they are bound to give. But apart from that, they are only bound to give what information is available and in the language it's available. But also, even before the RTI Commission, we have found that appeals filed in Tamil don't even receive an acknowledgement for 5-6 months. And of course, there are excuses that they're resource trapped in certain senses. But it's not intentional people are not intentional. The system is not intentional in approaching this in a gender equal way.
Quite right, actually, and that point was actually made by even the Vikas editor Sampa when I was talking to him about this language thing, about it not being a solution to what is already kind of an embedded language discrimination issue. Moving on, Sankhitha was also talking a little bit about the obstacles that citizens face. I also now want to talk to Tharindu about the obstacles that he faces as a journalist when he files. Then Tharindu, Madhaviriya says the RTI request file කිරීමේදී ඔබට යම් බාධක මුහුණ දීමට සිදු වුණාද?
ඔව් මාධ්‍යවේදී මාධ්‍යවේදියෙක් විදිහට මාධ්‍යවේදියෙක් විදිහට සොතුරුවේදී යොමු කරද්දී එහෙම බාධා අභියෝගය දීලා නැහැ. බාධා අභියෝගය කියන්නේ ලොකු ප්‍රශ්නේ තමයි ලොකු කාලයක් ගත වෙන්නේ. සමහර වෙලාවට සමහර ආයතන උදාහරණයක් අධ්‍යාපන අමාත්‍යාංශ වගේ ආයතන මම හිතන පාඩු වෙන කියලා දන්නේ නැමද කොහෙද ඒක පොලිස් කමිෂන් සභාව ඒ වගේම සාමාන්‍ය දවස් 1000ක් වුණාට ඒගොල්ලෝ දවස් 1000 තුන ලියුමක් කියනවා දෙනවා කියලා ඊට පස්සේ සැරෙන් ෆෝන් එකෙන් කතා කරගෙන කියනවා දෙනවා කීකේ මාස ගණන් පරක්කු කරනවා මම හිතන්නේ පොලිස් කමිෂන් සභාවේ මෑතකදී දැන් මාර්ගයේ විස්තර තියෙනවා ඒක විදිහට තොරතුරු කොමිසමෙන් එකක් ඇපීල් එකක් විභාග කරනවා අධ්‍යාපන අමාත්‍යාංශයෙන් ඒ වගේ කියන්නේ ලොකු කාර්යයක් ගන්න ඉල්ලනවා ඉතින් අපිට අවශ්‍ය ප්‍රයෝජනෙ ගන්න බැරි වෙන විදිහට තමයි ආයතන වලින් වැඩ කරන්නේ මාධ්‍යවේදී කියලා දැනගත්තාම ඒකම පුනරුත්ථාපන කොමසාරිස් ජනරාල් කාර්යාංශ එකපාරට උදේලි මම දැම්මා ඒ දැම්මේ මම ලිපියක් ලිව්වා පුනරුත්ථාපනය කරපු LDP සමාජිකයන්ගේ දැන් තියෙන ප්‍රශ්න මොනවද කියලා ඒගොල්ලෝ මේවා ඒ සම්බන්ධයෙන් ඒකට තව සංඛ්‍යාලයකට ගත්තී ඒක ආයතනවල තියෙන එක සංඛ්‍යාලයක හරියට පුනරුත්ථාපනය කරපු සංඛ්‍යාවක් නැහැ මේ සංඛ්‍යාලයකදී ඉන්නලා පුනරුත්ථාපන කොමසාරිස් ජනරාල් කාර්යාංශයට අන්තිය ගත්තාම ඒකේ කොමසාරිස් ජනරාල් කතා කරලා ඒක උදේ ඉන්නන්නේ පොඩ්ඩක් ඒක මොනවද ගන්න ප්‍රශ්න වෙනක් ඇහුවා ඒ සම්බන්ධයෙන් තොරතුරු කොමිසමට ඇපීල් කරාට පස්සේ ඒගොල්ලෝ කිව්වා මේක ජාතික ආරක්ෂාව ප්‍රශ්නයක් ඒකිට දෙන්න බෑ කියලා. ඒක මට පුළුවන් වුණා ප්‍රතික්‍රම දෙපැත්තෙන් යනවා ඒගොල්ලෝ අතුරුට සංවිධානයේ කියනවා මේ සමග සංඛ්‍යාවල මොකද ජාතික ආරක්ෂාව සම්මතයක් නම් අතුරුසෙකට දෙන්න බෑනේ. ඒකම ජාතික ආරක්ෂාව සම්මතයක් කියන එක තොරතුරු කොමිසම පිළිගත්තේ නැහැ. ඊට පස්සේ මම මේගොල්ලෝ මත කරපු තරග තමයි මේක මේ පුරුත්තාපනයේ වෙච්ච LDP සමාජිකයන්ගේ පෞද්ගලිකත්වයට හානියක් කියලා. දැන් තොරතුරු පනත කියන්නේ පුද්ගලයෙකුගේ පෞද්ගලිකත්වයට අනවසරයෙන් ඇතුළු වීම නිසා කණ්ඩායමක් ගැන නෙමෙයි. එතකොට දැන් මේගොල්ලෝගේ ප්‍රකාශනවල පුරුත්තාපන කොමසාරිස් කාර්යාංශ ප්‍රකාශනවල අපි විස්තර ඒවා කළා කියලා දෙන්නන්න පුනරුත්ථාපනයේ LDP සමාජිකයන්ගේ ෆොටෝ එකක් දාලා දෙනවා. ඒක එක ප්‍රකාශනයක තියෙනවා. පොඩි ළමයිගේ ළමා සොල්දාදුවන්ගේ ෆොටෝ ඒ කාලේ කොහොමද දැන් කොහොමද සංසන්දනය කරලා දානවා. ඉතින් ඒවා දෙන්නේ පෞද්ගලිකත්වයට හානියක් නෙවෙයි දාන්න බෑනේ. ඒවා මගේ පැත්තෙන් මේ දේවල් කිව්වට පස්සේ තොරතුරු කොමිසම නියෝග කළා තොරතුරු දෙන්න කියලා. හැබැයි ඒ වෙනකොට මගේ තොරතුරු කොමිසම ගැන සංකීර්ණ දන්න වැඩි සාමාන්‍යයෙන් යම් ප්‍රශ්න හින්දා තොරතුරක් ගන්න යනවා ලොකු පාලයක් සාමාන්‍ය සංකීර්ණලා මේක ගන්න මම හිතන්නේ ගියා අවුරුද්දක් විතර මේකට ගියා මාස 8ක් විතර. ඉතින් ඒකකොට අර මට අවශ්‍යතාවය මගේ ඉටු වෙන්නේ මට ඕන වෙලාවට මේ ලොකු කාලයකට පස්සේ. තවත් උදාහරණයක් කරමු යාපනයේ සිද්ධිය කිව්වා. ඔය යාපනයේ සිද්ධිය 2016 ඔක්තෝබර් 20 මට ආරංචි ඉන්නේ මම ගිහින් හිටියා කුඩාචාර ඉදිරි බලාගාර ගැන තොරතුරු හොයන්න රත්නපුරේ පැත්තට. ඒ 2016 ඔක්තෝබර්. එතකොට දැන් මට ඕනෙකම තිබ්බා මේ වෙනකොට ලංකාවේ කුඩාචාර ඉදිරි බලාගාර කොච්චර තියෙනවද ඒවැ හිමිකාරයෝ කියලා දැනගන්න. මධ්‍යම පරිසරිකාරයට ආර්ථිකය කියලා මම ඒගොල්ලෝ හිමිකාරයන් කියලා දුන්නේ නැහැ. අධ්‍යක්ෂ මාධ්‍ය මොනවද දුන්නේ නැහැ. ඒගොල්ලෝ ලැයිස්තුවක් දුන්නා. ඒකම ඊට පස්සේ මෙන්න ආයතන ටික තියෙන හින්දා ඒවැ අධ්‍යක්ෂ මණ්ඩලයකට තොරතුරු ඉල්ලන්න සමාගම් වලට ගියාම තොරතුරු පන්ති තියෙනවා දැනට යම් ආයතනයකින් බිල ගණන් තීරණය කරලා තියෙනවා නම් ඒ බිල ගණන්ව තමයි තොරතුරු පන්තියට ඉල්ලන්නේ. ගාස්තු වෙන්නේ. සාමාන්‍යයෙන් රුපියල් 3000ක් විතර යනවා එක කම්පැනි එක මම ඉල්ලන විස්තර ගන්න. එතකොට මට මේ එකතර 180 ගණන් තිබ්බා ඔක්කොම ගණන් හදලා බලද්දී ඒ තොරතුරු ගන්න යනවා 1 ලක්ෂ දෙකකට ආසන්න ගන්න. සායනික ලක්ෂ දෙකක් දෙන්න අපිට තොරතුරක් ගන්න බෑනේ. ඉතින් ඒ වගේ ප්‍රශ්න කියලා ගන්න ඕන නම් තව මට කවුරුහරි කියනවා ලේඛන ආරක්ෂක දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවකින් තොරතුරක් ඉල්ලුවොත් එහෙම ඒකේ තොරතුරු දෙනවා වෙලාවට හැබැයි ලොකු ගාණක් යනවා. අපි ඉතරට යනවා. මාධ්‍යවේදී විදියට ප්‍රායෝගිකව ඒක අමාරුයි. දැන් කුඩාචාර විදියට බලාගන්න සම්බන්ධයෙන් මට මේකේ තාම ලියා ගන්න බැරි වුණා. ඒකත් අරක ඉඳලා දැන් අරක මුලින් තොරතුරු දෙන්නම් කියලා ඊට ගණන් හදලා ලක්ෂ දෙකකට ලං වෙනවා. ඒකටත් මාස ගණනක් යනවා. ඊට පස්සේ මම ආයෙ පාරක් දැන් අප්ඩේට් වෙච්ච තොරතුරු ඉල්ලන්න පරිසර අධිකාරියට දැම්මාම ඒගොල්ලෝ ලේවනවා වෙන තොරතුරක්. සංඛ්‍යාව වෙනස්. ඒ සම්බන්ධයෙන් අපි ආචරණයක් දාලා දැන් අපි ආචරණ දෙපාරක් ගන්න තියෙනවා ඊළඟට අපේ දෙවිදක් ගන්න යනවා අප්‍රේල් වෙනිදා මම හිතන්නේ වෙනස් වුණොත් එහෙම තව කල් යනවා. එතකොට නියමිත කාලයකට පුරුදු ගන්න බැරුව වෙනවා. හැබැයි මම හිතනවා සාර්ථක තෝරා ගන්න පුළුවන් කියලා. කාලය පිළිබඳ ප්‍රශ්න සහ මුදල් පිළිබඳ ප්‍රශ්න තමයි මාධ්‍යයෙන් තියෙන්නේ. එහෙම නැත්නම් සාමාන්‍යයෙන් මගේ අත්දැකීම් විදිහට නම් අධ්‍යාපන අමාත්‍යාංශයේ ජාතික පොලිස් කොමසම හැර අනිත් හැම ආයතනයකින්ම පහසුවෙන් දොරටු ගන්න පුළුවන්. තව උදාහරණයක් කියනවා නකල් අර ඉඩම් විකුණන ප්‍රශ්න ගැන කතා කරලා ඒක ගොඩක් මාත් වාර්තා කරලා තිබ්බේ ඒ පැත්තට ගිහිල්ලා මිනිස්සු කියන කතායි දේශපාලන කියන කතායි විතරයි. ડોකියුමන්ට්ස් වලින් පෙන්නලා තිබ්බේ නෑ ඇත්තටම මේ විකුණනවට බදු දෙන්න හරියන්නේ රජයේ ඉඩන්න නැද්ද කියලා. මේක ගැන කතා දෙන්න. මේක ගැන කතා කරන දවස්වල අපි RTI දැම්මා. ඒකට සාමාන්‍යයෙන් අපි දැන මාසයක් දෙකක් අපිට පුළුවන්කම හම්බුණා නකල් ලක්ෂිතය ගැසට් කරපු දෙකන ඒක මේක ඉඳන් මායින් ඒකම නකල් පළු දෙන්න වෙනවා කියන ඒ ප්ලෑන් මොනවද ඒ ඔක්කොම අරගෙන සංසන්දනය කරලා බලද්දී ඇත්තටම නකල් සංරක්ෂිත ප්‍රදේශයේ තියෙන ඉඳන් පළු දෙනවා කියන පෙන්නන්නේ. හැබැයි අපේ ලිපියෙන් කියනකොට අර ඒක කියන තිබ්බ කතාව වෙන යටපත් වෙලා මිනිස්සුන්ට අපතක වෙලා ගිය තත්ත්වයක අර ඕක ගැන කතා වෙච්ච මාසෙක මාස 4-5ක් ගිහලා තමයි අපිට ලියන්න පුළුවන්කම හම්බුනේ. හැබැයි ඒ වුණාට ඒකේ අර ડોකියුමන්ට්ස් ඔක්කොම තියෙන හින්දා සාර්ථක පුරවල ගන්න පුළුවන්කම ලැබුණා.
Thanks, Tharindu. So, Tharindu was talking a little bit about some of the obstacles that he faces as a journalist. Sometimes, because of his name, because he's known as a journalist, there are certain kind of institutions which take a long time to respond or which don't respond at all. There have been times for, I actually neglected to mention this earlier, sometimes the delay has been up to 2 years for the Jaffna University incident for him to finally get the information. So that's a long time, and that's a major barrier that a lot of journalists say they face when they're filing for requests. Apart from that, there's also so for some of the requests that are document heavy, they also make requests for you to pay money to receive the information. So that's another barrier. Sometimes they will ask for very huge, like unreasonable amounts of money, which are very difficult to kind of pay. So moving on from the journalist perspective to civil society, Malsirini, what would you say about how was the reaction to some of the work that Verité was doing? For example, we should kind of start talking about disclosure and about tracking the budget promises. What was the reaction to that? Did any of them kind of reach out to you, and what were some of the obstacles that were faced when doing this work?
Thank you, Raisa. Generally, I must say that there hasn't been proactive reaching out from a public authority to Verité research about the information, or them wanting to either share more information, or I wouldn't say that has happened, but what we've understood throughout this process is that the RTI, the entire procedure, as it is now, maybe my fellow panelists can correct me, is very personality dependent. It hasn't really taken root in the institutional structures yet, and we are to expect that. This is an act that was passed in a few years ago, right? But what we realized is your success with the RTI, our success with the proactive disclosure studies we did, it all depended on the particular officer. So there were officers who said, we want our ministry, our website to be the #1 website, we want us to have a better ranking, and they were driving that discussion forward. But then it's the same thing when you practically go to file an RTI as well. It depends on the particular officer you have been assigned, which is a challenge that a lot of researchers who are working on the budgetpromises.org platform is facing, because this is a trend we've noticed throughout the 2 years, is that sometimes you have asked for information and you get a call saying that your information is ready from the particular division, but when you go to pick it up, the information officer, who may probably be a high-ranking officer in the ministry or the particular public authority, he does this additional task of vetting the information that has been provided by that division. So while you're in his presence, there have been instances where they have said, oh, this is confidential information, we can't give this to you, and he's cutting and chopping the document in front of you, or they say, come back later, this has to be edited. So you have personalities where they say, you know, you asked this for last year, we have it already, just here's the information, and you're good to go. So we have had issues of dealing with different personalities, and it continues to be that way. I'm not sure if anyone else has a different experience of it being completely owned by each public authority, institutionalized in a way that we all would like it to be. The other issue we have faced is, I think Tharindu touched on this, is the payment method. So we have had this interesting back and forth with a particular public authority that told us the cost for the information was 14 rupees, as our researchers tell us, and they have been asked to pay through a money order to get this information, and that had to be done through a post office. And there was a massive back and forth going into months about this money order, because the post officers were not aware of their role in the whole RTI structure, in the grand scheme of things. So this is the other issue about RTI. You're expecting your information officer to know the law, your designated officer to know the law, your civil society to know the law, but it all seems to be in a vacuum. So we had to go back and forth between the post office took a time to decide whether they are going to take up this money order business. And then when we did, they said, the ministry tells us that's the wrong post office. You have to pay it to a different one. This is 14 rupees we're talking about. And then you have to move and make your money order to a different post office. And then they say, no, actually the ministry has its own post office, so you should have paid there in the first place. So at the end of the day, you end up possibly going back and forth with your toll charges, spending way more money than you anticipated to get information that cost you 14 rupees. And in certain instances, the third issue is that we've also had to play the role of the coordinator within the public authorities. So generally, either this is lack of awareness, but I would also put it also on the side of unwillingness as well, because I'm pretty sure all officers know the structure of their institution. So when you file the RTI, they tell you they don't know which division it's supposed to go to. So sometimes you are playing the role of calling up each division and asking whether they have received this RTI from the officer, and if not, whether they send it back. So you're actually effectively playing the coordinator, because you're calling up, let's say a particular unit has 6 divisions, you're actually calling up all 6 divisions and asking whether it's you who would have this information. If not, did you send our request back to the information officer? And then there have been instances where we repeatedly lost RTIs because it's just going back and forth. And the other issue is what Simon talked about, time. The amount of time that it takes to get an RTI successfully across. We've had, so for the budget promises, we have our own methodology where even if they do keep contact with you, sometimes you're not going anywhere because someone is telling you they're putting it together but it's not ready yet. We go ahead and appeal and then note it down as either disclose or undisclosed. But we have been in several commission hearings where after we have spent so much of time waiting for the information, months waiting for the information, once we decided to appeal, it would then be in the commission for a long time. So one of our appeals was actually in the commission for the entirety of last year, and now it's in the Court of Appeal, which might take a bit more longer than anticipated to get the information.
Thanks, Malsirini. And actually, that is actually, it does ring very true. Even the part of money reminded me of an instance where I filed at the TRC, and their finance division didn't have money. They needed exact change. The person who had to file who actually had to enter it was on leave. So I had to end up going all the way back up to the top of the building, across to the canteen to get the money, to get the change in order to file and get the information that I needed. And that is an experience that happens in a lot of places. So I'm running around a lot. Moving on to Pasan and kind of building on what you were saying about the different responses when you file things which kind of pertain to national security. From all these responses, what would you say has been learned about how the government sees what is a national security issue, just in terms of when that exemption is applied. How would you say, what has been learned from that?
Thanks, Reza. So it's quite interesting, I think, when you compare a lot of these responses that come in various levels of obstruction to providing information. I think one of the other things is that when we talk about this culture of secrecy, I think national security is probably the topmost area of policy, if you want to call it that, where that really activates within the government and the state. I would sort of say that the RTI Act, what it's done is it's challenged in a kind of little way the overwhelming sort of presumption of that culture of secrecy, right? So prior to the Act, it was very much that the government could be secretive and it was allowed to be, you couldn't challenge it in any sense. And so what that kind of allowed most government authorities, especially the national security oriented public authorities to do was justify it, right? To justify any of their actions or actions. What the RTI does, especially when you sort of interrogate their action through just the act of providing information on it, and when you interrogate it through making appeals, going to the RTI Commission, what it does is it, in a way, kind of puts an onus on those government authorities to even articulate what national security is, right? So in a lot of the, if you look at some of the RTI Commission decisions relating to national security, so if you look up any decisions where the Ministry of Defence, the Sri Lanka Army, and Sri Lanka Navy is the defendant, some of those decisions, some of those rulings really come down to the RTI Commission directly asking those authorities to be like, why is this a national security issue, right? Because you can't just cite it, you have to actively say why this is a pressing national security issue. And so compared to the past where you could just cite it and not justify it at all, in these instances where there are appeals, even at the request stage, you do need, some of these authorities are being challenged to provide those definitions and to justify the action in a way. And what you do see in this sense is there's actually not a single definition of national security that are held by these state authorities. So some of the, for example, if you look at some of the cases relating to that have involved the Sri Lanka Army, the reasons why they provide for some any particular issue being a national security related one, you can kind of see this being quite different to, for example, police. And that really relates to, for example, when an issue sort of relates to personnel and human resources, the way that they justify that is quite different to when it relates to, say, issues of reports. Right? So there was one case relating to the legal action that was taken against the peacekeepers that were deployed in Haiti. And you could see that the defendant was Ministry of Defense. And what some of the reasons they were providing to justify the national security was that it was already being investigated by other places. And therefore, and they were bringing in the fact that there was an ongoing UN investigation, and that was their sort of to sort of justify that as a national security issue. When you looked at a similar sort of other requests being made, for example, to do with commercial ventures that are run by the Army, so this is relating to some requests about the hotels and businesses that the Army was running. The use of the national security exemption there was very much about saying that the activities of the Army, the ongoing activities of the Army, are covered under national security, so they call it public question. So you can kind of see that sort of justification or even the very definition of national security kind of breaking down a bit. I mean, that's kind of interesting from a philosophical level, I guess, but practically, I think it really means, I think, in some senses, it's kind of like too early in a way to like make a big picture about how the Sri Lankan state view national security, right? But in a very, I guess, just on a day-to-day practical, from a practical perspective of the persons themselves, I think you could kind of see it as a small positive that at least these authorities are being asked to make articulation. And going forward from that, I think one real value of these sorts of challenges is that when you have the RTI Commission making decisions, like judgment, that hopefully sets this precedent value where in future if the army, particularly under different administrations, if the army continue or any of these sort of national security related public authorities continue to act in certain ways, that you could be like, hey, back then the decision was that you can't